rattle before I felt the metallic taste rising up my throat. When the flashlight flickered, I saw the low, triangular eyes, the mouth opening like an old lock. I ran. The sound followed me. It wasn't just one. I should have left the backpack behind. Tonight, we bring you 3 accounts of encounters with snakes in the United States. Stories sent as real accounts from people who swear they barely survived, and that something stayed on the other side of the night, watching. Take a deep breath. Sometimes, what hisses in the dark isn't the wind. Story 1. Quartzite Trails. I thought the Sonora Desert was silence until the night began to breathe inside me. I went for a walk after sunset on a quartzite trail I knew by heart. The air was fragrant with creosote after a light rain. The fine sand creaked under my boots, grains of ground glass. My flashlight exhaled a warm heat into my palm. I first heard a sound, almost electric, like a bulb about to burn out. I stopped. The bulb wasn't mine. It came from the ground, from a point that didn't reflect light. I aimed the beam and saw it. Camouflaged brown, diamonds, the dry tail vibrating in a muscle trick. Western rattlesnake. The tip of the tongue, black and as thin as a paper cut, came in and out, tasting the salt dripping from my chin. I backed away slowly, tried a wide turn. The sound stopped. I thought I'd made it. Then another rattle answered from the left, and another faint among the stones behind me. The air went still. The smell of wet earth changed, the sweetness vanished, replaced by the odor of leather and old dust, like inside a forgotten trunk. The trail seemed smaller at night, narrow enough to brush both elbows against the sides. The stones held the day's heat. The soles of my boots seemed to stick. With every step, the flashlight beam revealed shades of brown that could have been shadow or body. I saw a perfect S curled around a dead saguaro trunk. The head came first, rising an inch too, the neck flattened like a blade about to slice the air. The rattle didn't sound, and that scared me more. I had 2 options: climb up to the rock bed, where rattlesnakes like the heat, or descend to the ravine with thorny bushes and little visibility. I chose the ravine. I left the trail, the thorns tearing at my jeans like fingers with glass nails. I stumbled down, loose stones cracking, and I heard a new sound, wet and subtle like a balloon being rubbed. It wasn't a rattle. It was my breath inside the mask of fear. At the bottom of the ravine, the air was colder. The sky seemed heavy, without stars. I turned off the flashlight for a second to listen. That's when something scraped my left ankle. That wasn't a stone. It was skin, cold. A dry brushing that left a wet trail of cold sweat. I turned the flashlight on in a panic, shining light on my foot. Nothing. Only dust rising. The sound of the rattle came back above me on the slope, as if they were watching me from above, calculating the path I'd take. I tried to calm down. I remembered the first aid lesson. Don't run, don't take big steps, don't put your hands where you can't see. I started walking close to the slope, using the flashlight low, sweeping the ground. Every 2 meters, a pair of eyes reflected for an instant and then disappeared. They weren't snakes, they were wolf spiders. I felt a mild nausea. My whole body went electric. I crossed a carpet of twigs and heard something else. A long whisper, like fabric being pulled. The light hit a stream of water and the water seemed to tremble with my sound. Next to it, a shadow thick as my arm slid into the dark. No rattle, no warning, just the sound of scales brushing the sand. I stopped there. The desert breathed with me. Every inhale brought a metallic taste like a coin left on the tongue. I could go back the same way, passing the rattles again, or follow the ravine to an old fence I vaguely remembered, exit onto the dirt road. I chose to go on. I put the flashlight between my teeth and used my hands to guide me along the walls of the ravine, feeling the rough sandstone, the dust sticking to my palms like flour. With every touch, I expected the shock. I saw serpentine marks in the dust, recent trails, a zigzag cutting through my tracks from minutes before. They were fresher than I wanted to admit. The ravine narrowed. For a moment, it became so narrow that I had to turn my shoulders. The flashlight hit the wall and went out. The dark clung to my eyes like paint. The rattle sounded once, very close, then stopped. I didn't move. The sound of my heartbeat seemed to beat outside my body. I reached into my chest pocket and found the spare flashlight button. One click, two, nothing. The third click brought a weak yellowish circle of light. There was a body across my path. It wasn't heavy. It was a thick ribbon hand-drawn with light stains. An old shell instead of leather. A black, patient eye. Gopher snake. Non-venomous. And yet, my leg froze. Its body moved like live rope, slithering slowly, without hurry, as if it knew I had no other option. When the last curve of muscle disappeared, I moved forward. I found the old fence by the smell. Rotten wood, sun-burnt iron. The first post was lying down. The moon came out from behind a cloud, faintly, like an eye opening halfway. On the other side, the road. I jumped, tearing my jeans more, fell to the other side and finally ran. When I got in the car, my hands were shaking so much I dropped the key twice. I started the engine and sat still, the headlights aimed at nothing. In the white beam, the dust danced. I swear I heard a rattle lightly, not from the ravine, not from the desert, under the car. I didn't wait to check. I drove until I saw streetlights, low houses, living people. At home, when I took off my boots, sand spilled out like an hourglass. At the bottom of one of the boots, stuck in the lining, there was a dry, hollow triangle, broken, a piece of rattle. I don't remember stepping on anyone. Did it come with me? Story 2, Cypress Swamp. I worked removing fallen trees after storms in South Florida. The swamp water rises, knocks down cypress trees, and we go in with flat-bottom boats to cut and pull them out. The smell is a mix of stagnant water, algae, and old gasoline. Mosquitoes like living dust. The sound? Frogs. Something tapping in the distance like someone slowly beating a rug. The freshwater tide moved almost imperceptibly, carrying pieces of branches and sometimes eyes that you only notice when they blink. It was after the rain, the air thick. Carl and I were crossing a corridor between trunks, cypress roots like the knees of someone praying. The water was murky tea. I knew there were cottonmouths around, water moccasins, that matte black color, like they had swallowed a piece of shadow, but I'd never seen one up close until that day. The boat scraped against a submerged trunk and spun half a meter. I reached out to stabilize with a branch, and that's when I felt the soaked fiber give way. The bark peeled off like old skin, revealing a crack. From the crack, as if spitting out the very night, came an open mouth, white, shining, the inside of the mouth like hospital cloth. I pulled my hand back and fell to sit down. The engine sputtered. The propeller hit a root and stopped. The water went still. Carl cursed, his voice the kind that's afraid to break the words. The mouth closed, the head slid out of the crack, broad shoulder blades, a thick body unrolling. The water, which always smells of nothing, suddenly had an odor of wet leather and old fish. The moccasin lifted its snout slightly, as if sniffing my skin, and started coming toward the boat. It didn't seem in a hurry. It seemed determined. Carl struck the water with the paddle hard. The sound echoed like a shot down the corridor of trunks. The snake turned, didn't flee. It circled. We felt the boat's hull gently bump something soft and taut. I imagined the vibration traveling up the aluminum and into my leg. On the side, another mouth opened, white again, in a hollow trunk. I held my breath. There were two, maybe three. The water touched my knee. It rose another inch. The boat, heavy with soaked trunks, descended into the silence. I tried to start the pulling engine. Nothing. The smell of gasoline mixed with algae and metal. Carl whispered for me to remove weight. I pushed a trunk over the edge. Something brushed my wrist as the trunk hit the water. It was soft but firm. A body. Wet scales have a touch that isn't like fish, nor like rubber. It's alive and indifferent. The first snake climbed the trunk and stopped 30 centimeters from the edge of the boat. Its mouth opened just a little. I could see the reflection of my flashlight in the shiny mucus. Its eye didn't have the shine of a dog's nor the coldness of glass. It was a dot that didn't blink, holding an ancient intention, older than my tools and my last name. I decided to do something my father taught me. Use the paddle as a barrier, not as a weapon. I placed the blade between the snake and the edge, slowly creating a slope. It rested its chin on the aluminum, felt the edge, and for a moment stood still. That's when something bumped the stern and the boat sank another inch. The water touched my ankles inside the boot. Cold. The snake advanced halfway. I backed up. Carl grabbed the log hook, the one with the J-shaped tip. I hated the idea, but he said, "Now." He lifted the tip and touched the trunk where the snake's body made a curve. It was a minimal touch, almost nothing, but the whole body vibrated and the mouth opened wide, the cotton of the mouth so white it flashed for a second. The boat rocked. The paddle slipped. I grabbed the edge with my bare hands, felt the cold aluminum and once again that touch of wet muscle brushing my fingers. I could swear I heard a song. It wasn't human. It was the wind whistling between cypress knees, turning the corridor into an organ of a church, that long, mournful sound. The snake stopped, closed its mouth and resumed sliding, not leaving, but disappearing underneath the boat, between the shadow of the stern and the floating trunk. A circle. A silent enclosure. I managed to get the engine to cough. The boat jumped once like a big fish trying to escape the net. The sound made the water tremble. The snake reappeared, head an inch away, mouth just a dark line. I pushed with the paddle without force, just guiding. It accepted it as if it understood and stayed beside us. When the propeller began to spin weakly, I pushed another trunk. The boat became lighter. Carl and I looked at each other. We had a clear corridor for 6 meters to a clearing. The engine cried out but pulled. We passed. The white mouths stayed behind like closing portals. When we reached the main canal, the air changed, the smell of real wind. The light, too, a strip of gray opened in the sky. The feeling of being watched didn't go away. At the dock, when I tied the boat, I saw out of the corner of my eye a movement in the hull drain. I crouched, brought the flashlight closer. Inside the hole, a triangle of skin, thin, looking like the inside of a mouth but without flesh. It looked like the memory of a mouth. I touched it. It was just shed skin. When I pulled it, the drain leaked dark water for long seconds, as if the swamp was breathing back to me. Story 3. Cabin in the Panhandle. I was alone in an old cabin in northern Florida, tall pines swaying like masts. I went there to fix the roof after a storm. The smell of resin, warm wood, and hidden moisture behind the walls. At night, the insects hit the window screen like hail made of flesh. The electricity was weak. The lamp hummed, tearing the silence into strips. On the first night, I heard footsteps in the attic. Not human footsteps. It was a coordinated dragging sound, pause, drag. Imagine many fingers pulling the body. I had already dealt with rats. I grabbed a flashlight, the ladder, and went up. The attic smelled like decades-old dust, sweet bitter guano, and something that resembled heated leather. The flashlight beam cut through spider webs like sugar threads. I saw the rat nest. I also saw what was left of them. Skins turned inside out, delicately like gloves scattered in circles. In the center, a hole between the beams where the wood was warmer. I stopped, feeling the heat on my face. The air there had a sound. Yes, a sound. As if the heat trembled and made a low, deep noise. The first night passed with that sound coming and going like breathing. I woke up at 3:11 with a weight on my chest, a dream of stone slabs and earth tunnels. In the dark, I heard a new sound, a rattle, but muffled, as if it were coming from inside the wood, and a new smell, metallic and sweet, a mix of leaking batteries and cut flowers. In the morning, I found a crack in the kitchen wall, behind the stove, a shadow line so straight it looked drawn. I touched it, and the wood gave way, inside cold and deep. I stepped back, decided to call the owner. He laughed. He said, "It's just rats, fix it yourself." I decided to seal the cracks at night with foam and mesh. I waited for the darkness to hear where the sounds were coming from. The second night didn't bring a rattle, it brought silence, and it was worse, silence full of expectation. I stayed on the living room floor, flashlight in my lap, kitchen door open. At midnight, the silence changed texture. It was as if I could touch it. I slowly raised the flashlight. The light hit a shape in the doorway. It wasn't thick. It was long, very long, a living rope crossing the corridor like a timeline. The skin, it didn't look like scales. It looked like worn leather, shining where it folded. It stopped with its head at the edge of the kitchen. I saw the eyes. They weren't large, but they held the light without blinking, as if the light were food and it was chewing slowly. There was no rattle at the end of the tail. There was a piece missing, as if someone had cut it. I knew I wasn't seeing a rattlesnake. But I also knew that wasn't a lost pet king snake. In northern Florida, some people release exotic animals when they grow too big. Its first movement was to climb onto the counter like it was a ladder. Its body was cold from the shine, but the air in the kitchen heated immediately, like I had turned on the oven. The smell changed. It wasn't resin anymore. It was something mineral, like wet stone in a closed house. I stayed still. I learned early on that sudden movements create quick decisions on the other side. It passed by a glass jar. The membrane of its belly scraped the top, a sound like sandpaper on marble. I felt my heart fall into an odd rhythm, like it skipped a beat and recovered in double. Its mouth opened just a little, and that's when I understood the sound I'd been hearing wasn't a rattle. It was air passing through a narrow place. I was hearing its breathing, slow, steady, like the bellows of an organ. When its head turned toward the stove, I saw scars on the side, old lighter lines, thick, crossing like maps. Someone had tried to catch it before, maybe on a ranch, maybe in an underground cage. I took a step back. The floor creaked. It froze. The tongue shot out, black, forked, tasting the molecules of my fear. I tasted rust in my mouth. The radio on the shelf crackled without anyone touching it. It picked up static, turned into a shadow of a voice, then silence. The snake slowly turned its head toward the sound, as if it recognized it. I felt a chill at the back of my neck, a sense that it had been here before, many years before me, and was reclaiming a place. The memory of the house wasn't mine. It slid off the counter and crossed the kitchen, disappearing into the crack behind the stove. I approached slowly. The air there was denser. The flashlight went a little into the hole and hit something that seemed like fabric. I pulled with 2 fingers. Shed skin, fresh, somewhat translucent. Too long, longer than my arm, longer than the 3 meters I had already seen. The skin folded inside, as if the house were only the first layer. I thought about leaving that night, but something held me. The idea of leaving it behind, alive and quiet, seemed worse than staying and watching. I stayed until dawn, sitting on the floor, the flashlight losing strength, the lamp buzzing like a tired bee. When the sun came in through a line in the roof holes, I heard the dragging sound moving away, going through the attic above my room. I grabbed the keys. At the door, I stopped. A mark on the floor, zigzagging dust, came from the kitchen to the bed. Under the bed, a long shadow that the sun didn't reach. I crouched, pressed the flashlight to the floor, and looked. The beam hit an eye, just one eye, black like a well. I stepped back, hit my head on the bed frame, and when I raised the flashlight again, there was nothing. The shadow was there, just the shadow. I left, locked the door, and left the key under the pot, as agreed. In the car, the smell of wet leather came with me, stuck in the fabric of the seat. In the rearview mirror, the cabin faded into the distance. To this day, when I enter an old house and feel the air grow heavy, I stop at the door, and I always look under the bed first.